All right, here we go. Our third Creative Mornings for Sacramento of 2024. Let's hit it. Maybe. There we go. All right. Our theme for May is vibrant. When was the last time you experienced something that made you feel more alive? Heard a melody pulsing with a beat that made your body move? Taken in the view of a lush landscape or sparkling city skyline bursting with light and shadows? Locked eyes with a striking stranger? Poured yourself into prose that crackles off the page with electricity? Lost track of time in a conversation punctuated by spirited laughter? Stopped in your tracks in front of a canvas in a museum or a mural on the street with colors so bold and bright it popped from the paint straight into your synapses? It might not happen every day, but you can live a life full of energy and enthusiasm. You can strive to bring brightness into every interaction, because our world is full of all kinds of vibrant masterpieces, and you are one of them. Okay. Sorry. Did you know the #1 way that people learn about Creative Mornings Sacramento is through friends? So next month we invite you to bring a friend. Whether they've never heard of Creative Mornings, have been away for a long time but are excited to get back, or a Creative Mornings regular but just need a push from a friend to get them to come along next month. It'll be super fun. So we can't wait to see you and your buds pour some more coffee and expand our circle of friends. And while we're on the topic of coffee, we did this previously, and now that we're I feel like we know each other now, we have the groove of this. Next month, I would love to BYOM. So bring your own mug if you want coffee. We will still have cups in case you forget, or if you ride a bike or whatever and you don't have hands for it. But let's bring a mug, and then that way you can have your mug from home. And we've done it previously, and it was cute and fun, and I want to do it again. So in the spirit of making friends, if everyone could turn to someone you don't know, just quickly say hello, which leads me to our volunteer team. Thank you so much to everyone who showed up this morning and helped, to our floral designs, our art pieces. Appreciate everyone that really contributes and sticks around and cleans up afterward. And speaking of cleaning up afterwards, if you haven't been before, after we're all wrapped up here, if you could fold up your chair, we'll pull out the racks. It would be awesome if you could just put your chair away for us. Scott, this thing is really sticky, so I warn you now. And then obviously our amazing volunteer team as well that helps out monthly. Maddie, our photographer, she's in the back. Say hello, she's amazing. We have Rachel, our social media manager, and David, our amazing videographer. So thank you guys so much. Volunteering your time and your creative efforts. Appreciate y'all. Oh, no. Who has batteries? And if you do want to volunteer or join at all, shoot me an email. I'll add you to my list, and you'll just hear from me all the time. Huge thank you to our partners that help this happen every month. The Clara, where we are, they've been amazing for setup, hosting us all for years. So thank you to the Clara for having us. Old Soul for providing us our baked goods. That co-op for our fruit and our beautiful floral bouquet. And Seasons Coffee for keeping us all caffeinated this morning. They're located here in the Clara. They have a very, very, very cute cafe. So if you've never been before, please go check them out. We have 2 free Adobe events coming up here in Sacramento. If you just want more creative things, more networking, this got sent out in a mail blast with the links, but I will keep sending it. They're both on June 4th. One of them is at 9 a.m. It's going to be, we had one previously, but it'll be another free training and networking session. If you work for the state, city, or county government, or a community-based organization that interacts with the government and would like to meet your creative peers and learn video editing basics, the 9 a.m. one will be for you. And then that evening at 5:30, Adobe Create Now is on tour. So they're going to a bunch of cities around the US. Connecting with fellow local creators, exploring new ways to collaborate and enhancing your creative process. Discover the latest features and get more pro tips for Photoshop, Illustrator, Adobe Firefly, Adobe Express, and more. There will be appetizers, drinks, and a chance to win a Creative Cloud membership. So if you're interested in either of these events, they're both on June 4th. I will keep sending them out. So, and if you ever interested in sponsoring in any way, shape, or form, also send me an email. Creative Mornings is currently in 238 chapters in cities and 69 countries worldwide. 27,000 morning people attend a Creative Mornings talk every month. Our events are and always will be free. So time for our little manifesto. It sets the tone for our events and shines a light on our values here at Creative Mornings. Everyone is creative. Yep. A creative life requires bravery and action, honesty and hard work. We are here to support you, celebrate with you, and encourage you to make the things that you love. We believe in the power of community. We believe in giving a damn. We believe in face-to-face connections, in learning from others, in jazz hands, virtual claps, and virtual snaps. We bring together people who are driven by passion and purpose, confident that they will inspire one another and inspire change in the neighborhoods and cities around the world. Everyone is welcome. And with that, maybe, I am done talking, and I'm excited to introduce Scott Ford to y'all. Scott is a Sacramento native who has worked tirelessly for nearly a decade to create a vibrant central city, always on the hunt for inspiration from other cities that get it right. His community-first approach has enhanced our public spaces to make Sacramento a place that people are proud to say that they're from. So, give it up for Scott.
Thanks, Molly. Thank you so
Sorry,
much.
that might be
No, it's okay. Thank you, Molly. Thanks everyone for being here this morning. Let me see if I can, actually might just take this off here, but good morning. It sounds like you guys can hear me, but great to see everyone this morning. And truly, thank you to Molly for having me here. I'll be honest, when Molly emailed me, I didn't know what Creative Mornings was, but I've learned that life gets better when you learn to say yes to the things that you don't know, and life also gets better when you learn to show up. So thank you everyone for showing up today. Honored to be here. Let's see if I can have better luck with the clicker than Molly had. Maybe not.
Aim it towards the, yeah.
There we go. Thank you. Molly already covered the manifesto, but I was going to start with that. But really great table setting, and actually speaks to I think a lot of things that I believe in my own life. So I won't go through this because I've got a lot of slides to get through. But I've always been fascinated by what makes some places vibrant, what makes some places work, and so many other places don't. So, you know, just to start off today, I want to show you examples of what I define in my mind as vibrant places. I'll learn, I promise. We've got active streets, you know, density, places where people want to come together to share ideas, much like we're doing today. You know, just taking advantage of natural assets, whether that's riverfronts, whether that's, you know, beautiful weather. I mean, that's what vibrant places are to me. Example of New York used to be Times Square was dominated by cars. Now it's dominated by people. You can engineer what you want a vibrant place to be, and I think that we can learn from examples all over the world as to how to do this. Bryant Park in New York, literally the textbook on vibrant places in the United States was based on Bryant Park. It's a great book. I'll get it for anyone who's interested in reading it, but just an incredible place. New Orleans, of course, just packed with people, you know, just vibrant places where people come together. And believe it or not, this is K Street in Sacramento. This is less than 100 years ago, but you know, the bright lights, the neon, the vibrancy that this portrays, you know, it shows that this is possible. This is 9th and K Street again, you know, about 100 years ago in downtown Sacramento, a vibrant place, lots of uses that people had to come. There's, you know, two types of uses. There's the mandatory uses. There's the obligation. You have to go to work. You have to run your daily errands. But there's also the voluntary uses. And you want to make sure you've got a healthy mix of both of those in any vibrant place. And this is an example of what was possible here in K Street, again, less than a century ago. This is 2nd Street, now known as Old Sacramento, a vibrant place. This is 4th Street looking north, Japantown. I mean, the fabric of downtown Sacramento was a really beautiful mosaic of different cultures, of vibrancy, of active uses. And then in the 1950s, Sacramento did what a lot of cities did across the United States. They, in the name of redevelopment, they thought that tearing apart these beautiful neighborhoods was the best practice. And you know, much of what existed here went away. I mean, this very building that we're in today, this was a school for kids because so many people lived in the central city. Families lived here, and as that went away, you know, these uses changed. So this is what Sacramento looked like. You can see the Tower Bridge, the Sacramento River there at the bottom. You can see just a nice mix of neighborhood. And literally in the 1950s and 1960s, a good portion of that neighborhood was wiped away in the name of redevelopment. It was a mistake, and we've got to learn from these mistakes, and we can do better. So this is the Sacramento that I grew up in. This is the Sacramento that most of us know. And again, in the name of redevelopment, we thought that the best thing to do was to create single-use areas. Downtown just became the office district for the area. We built freeways that moved people away from downtown as quickly as possible. We clustered residential. The retail followed that. We had an arena out in the cow pasture in the north when I was a kid. We had a university off to the east. This is, if I can get this to change here, this is a dispersal type of uses in cities. This is what most of us grew up understanding. This is what, from the 1950s on, they thought was what cities should be. But we know that that was really destructive to cities. It was really destructive to the social fabric. And fortunately, we're starting to learn that a concentration of use types, much like we had 100 years ago, is really a much better and much healthier city for everyone to have. So what we started to do, a decade ago, I moved back to Sacramento, my hometown, largely because this city was making a decision that I thought was impossible. They were taking the arena that was out in the cow pasture and they were moving it downtown. And everybody thought it was crazy. Everybody thought the world was going to end and where was anybody going to park and what was going to happen. But what we have seen is that was, a use type that made a lot of sense. It drove vibrancy to Sacramento. It got people excited about what this city could be. The world didn't end. There were already 16,000 parking spaces that could be shared resources. It started to encourage people to want to live downtown, to want to spend time downtown for reasons that they hadn't before. So one of the two principles that I want to share with you today as it relates to vibrancy is that density drives vibrancy. It is about mixing uses together. It is not about separating uses. A healthy city is a mixed-use city. All right, I skipped one here, but let's see if we go back. Now, the past 5 years, as we know, everything has changed as it relates to downtowns across the United States and certainly downtown Sacramento. That office-dominated model that we've come to rely on, it wasn't a sustainable model. And this data, this shows, and I won't spend too much time on this because I know graphs are boring, but these are employees, in the downtown area. This data goes back to 2017. And what we saw is that people in office, employees, were already starting to decline as far as how much time they were spending in offices. We were already seeing that technology was making people untethered from having to go to the office 5 days a week, 40 hours a week. So you can see where that trend line was already starting to go down. Of course, you can see where 2020 hit. And if you look at the numbers today, we're only at about 48% of in-office occupancy as opposed to, or when compared to pre-pandemic numbers. So, that's got a lot of people stressed out. The good news is we've started to mix in other uses in our downtown area. And actually, employees only make up about 20% of the total number of people who come downtown. The real exciting area is in visitors, or people who don't necessarily work downtown, but they choose to come downtown. So when you factor those in, along with all the new residential development that we're seeing in the central city, that repopulation of the urban core that we saw 100 years ago, and that we're starting to move towards again, that brings us up closer to 80% recovery. Now, we've still got a 22% gap, right? We've still got a lot of stressed out property owners, a lot of stressed out board members, and they're asking us every day, how do we get back to that 100% level of the pre-pandemic numbers? I think that's the wrong question. I think that what we should be aspiring towards is this opportunity area, is to pushing into dimensions that downtown has not seen pre-pandemic. When you mix uses in, that's where you start to get into the innovative space. You start to get a healthy residential density. We're a city that next year is going to have 2 major league sports teams in its urban core for the first time in history. That is new dimensionality to downtown, and that's what we're focused on. All right. So a little bit about our organization. We're a nonprofit called the Downtown Sacramento Partnership. We help sort of serve as a liaison between the business owners, the property owners, and the city government, the state governments. But we cover an area that's 66 blocks in the central city. We manage 6 different sub-districts, Old Sacramento down to 16th Street. And I do want to acknowledge, I've got some of my teammates here today with us, Austin, Gabby, Marley, somewhere around here as well. These teammates here with the Downtown Partnership, they truly are leading what makes Sacramento vibrant. We've got events like concerts in the park. I invite everybody to come out tonight. We've got the Destroy Boys headlining, but these types of activations in the urban center are what make the city attractive for people to live in and are truly what's making Sacramento a destination of choice moving forward. Now, when I look at the city, I really look at it this way. I see that we've got first order amenities, kind of those big orange square or those big orange circles. Those have strong gravitational pulls. Those are places like Golden One Center, like the Convention Center, even like the old Sacramento waterfront, where we start to see a lot of programming. This brings people into the city who probably wouldn't be coming there otherwise. And then we start to add complementary amenities in that area. And that's really what the success of a vibrant place is all about. It is about critical mass clustering of these types of activations. Now, as you can see, there's a lot of gaps in that area. So what we really want to work towards, bear with me here, there we go, is that getting that critical mass up to a place where you've got residential mixed in with all of that. You've got smaller activations in these spaces, and you get people to organically move between all these activity centers and spend more time in the central city. There's a principle called Power of 10. Project for Public Spaces has said that any great, vibrant place has a minimum of 10 activities going on. And that can be at the city level, it can be at the park level, or it can be at the real micro level there, as you can see. And those activities are a range of activities, from walking your dog to reading a book to playing games. That's really what creates urban vibrancy. And this is how that translates. Again, this is Bryant Park. This is a park that wasn't always a destination of choice. By adding that critical mass of activations, of passive recreation, of low barrier entry points, of creating opportunities for people to have spontaneous interactions with their neighbors who maybe they didn't know yet. This is the kind of model that we aspire towards. If I go over my 20 minutes, it's because of the clicker. It's not
Here.
Let's see.
I will click.
Thank you, thank you. So we've used this model. Many of you may have seen, in Cesar Chavez Plaza, the heart of the city has been a really underutilized asset for a long, long time. My mom tells me when she was young, they were scared to walk through this park because it was Wino Park. We've worked with community partners. We were able to secure a Smud Shine grant last year, and we started to introduce passive recreational opportunities, flexible infrastructure to make Cesar Chavez Plaza a comfortable space, to complement the Thursday Bodega Day markets, the concerts in the park there that we do. We work with community partners like the Sacramento Hispanic Chamber of Commerce to host their annual gala there in the park and to add vibrancy. Small passive recreation opportunities like outdoor reading rooms, introducing literacy into the park, into a place that readers of all ages and all skill levels can have these types of moments. Ordinary experiences in extraordinary settings. I mean, that really is what drives vibrancy in a city. Thank you. Go back one. Oh, this is fine. So, yeah, I mentioned earlier, when we started to disperse uses in cities, one of the things that we did, we built interstates, we built freeways, and these freeways not just got people away from the city as quickly as possible, which I would argue is probably not the best thing if you want to have a vibrant city center, but they also cut off cities from some of their great natural assets like we have here in Sacramento with the riverfront, and they frankly tore neighborhoods apart. And so one of the things that we're looking at right now is there's federal grant opportunities north of $3 billion to stitch communities back together, to repair the damage that federal infrastructure did in the past. We can't go back and erase some of those mistakes, but we can work hard to make up for it. So this is an example in Dallas, Texas, where they took a 3-block section of freeway that was below street level. They put a cap on it, and they built what now is a signature front lawn, a gathering space for everybody in the Dallas region. Everyone says this is impossible. They say it's expensive, but this costs about as much as a freeway interchange costs, and nobody raises an eyebrow when you're building a freeway interchange. So I say we start going after federal dollars like this and make this a reality in Sacramento. Thank you. And people will always tell you it's impossible. I'm told every day, think this is impossible. We can't do it. It's a lot of work. Well, it's possible. This is what they're doing in Philadelphia right now. Similar project, I-95 cuts Philadelphia off from the Delaware riverfront. This is under construction right now, and this is what I hope we're going to have under construction in the next few years in Sacramento. And this is already happening. On the North Riverfront, just north of Old Sac, we've got an adaptive reuse project that was done a few years ago, the Museum of Science and Curiosity. It's now an amazing asset. The kids growing up in Sacramento now have the ability to go to a world-class museum. Just to the south of it, we've got cherry blossoms being planted in Matsui Park. That's going to be officially open this summer, and that starts to create that critical mass of activity centers and gives people reasons to move organically through these areas. So as everyone knows, the state of California, has a ton of land in downtown Sacramento, and as I said, employees aren't coming back at the rates that they were pre-pandemic. That was a trend that was accelerated by the pandemic, but let's not look backward. There's no what ifs in life. There's what happens. And you got to learn from those opportunities. You've got to see them as inflection moments, and you've got to move forward. So one of the things that we're working closely with the state of California on right now is to identify highest and best uses for some of these parcels. Now, some of it may very well be converted into housing. I'm all for getting as much residential density at every level of affordability that we can get. But the reality is a lot of these buildings don't lend themselves well to residential conversion. So we're pushing the conversation right now about some of these key sites. I mean, this is literally along Capitol Mall. This is the Grand Boulevard of California. What if we looked at, repurposing some of these sites as new builds and higher density opportunities? What if we put in a higher education university right on Capitol Mall? You've got the seat of policy for the 5th largest economy in the world 2 blocks away. That is a place that I think would add value to the university and add another use purpose for downtown Sacramento. It's something we're actively working on right now. We've seen this in other cities. Phoenix, over the past 10 years, they expanded Arizona State University. They, of course, have the Tempe campus, but now they've got a major downtown Phoenix campus. It's linked by light rail. We already have light rail in place in downtown Sacramento. Let's capitalize on these assets. And this has been a great driver for the university, and we think that it's something that's going to play a big role here in Sacramento. So I'm going to go quick through this, but as I've mentioned, socially it makes sense to cluster uses. Environmentally, we know it makes sense to cluster uses because it reduces the number of vehicle miles traveled. But financially, it also makes a lot of sense. We've gotten used to budget deficits. You hear a $66 million budget deficit this year in Sacramento. We know the state of California has a major deficit. Part of it is because we have been building in an unsustainable manner financially. With this sprawl model that we've been building since the 1950s. This shows the type of tax revenue that's generated when you build in different ways. On the left, you can see that single-family homes, Walmarts, strip malls, they generate very little taxable revenue, just per acre. When you look at modest density, I'm not talking about 20-story high-rises, I'm talking about 2, 3, 6-story high-rises. The amount of property tax, the sales tax per acre that you generate is tremendous. That's how you build a financially sustainable city. A community is many things, but we're also a shared fiscal corporation. We've got to make sure that we are protecting, our essential services moving forward, so we have to grow this way. When you add a third dimension to it, this is what it looks like. Density, downtowns, 5% of the land mass typically generates about 50% of the total taxable revenue. We're working on a map like this for all of Sacramento County so that we can inform our land use policies in a way that makes sense moving forward. When you get to the edges, not only does it not generate as much taxable revenue, it actually generates negative taxable revenue when you're trying to keep up with the infrastructure. So this is something that we need to be aware of, and this is something that we're pushing here moving forward. So applying this locally, what do? We look at underutilized spaces. This was Waterfront Park 4 years ago in Old Sacramento. It was literally just a dirt patch. It wasn't used at all. Coming out of the pandemic, we knew that people couldn't eat inside restaurants, but as restrictions started to get lifted, we knew that they could eat at outdoor dining centers. So we worked to bring in outdoor infrastructure, tables, chairs, and created ways for people to support small businesses to come together safely and to have great social interactions here. We built upon that. That year we couldn't produce Theater of Lights, we couldn't produce Polar Express, but we did work with the county to have outdoor activations and a local event producer to bring in a Ferris wheel on the waterfront. This was meant as a temporary activation, but it kept hope alive. It gave people a reason to come back downtown again safely. It kept the small businesses in that area alive just through that activation. And it sends a very clear message that Sacramento is a fun city, that we are a place that believes in ourselves, that where we make the impossible happen. Believe me, I thought I was going to get fired the night that we brought in the Ferris wheel. I didn't totally have permission for it, but that's the innovative space. That's where interesting things happen. And I'm not saying being reckless, but I am saying you got to have an appetite for risk. So I showed you at the beginning of this Bryant Park as a model for urban vibrancy. Well, in the 1980s, this was Bryant Park. Bryant Park was a space that, unless you were going there to get drugs, there wasn't a lot of reason to go to Bryant Park. But the second thing that makes a vibrant place is that it is adaptable. You learn from the deficits, you learn from the mistakes, and you believe that a place can be something more. I showed you Tokyo at the beginning, arguably one of the most vibrant cities in the world. Well, this is also Tokyo in 1923 after an earthquake. Adaptable places are places that become vibrant if they believe in themselves, if they learn to grow from the forces that push back against them. Berlin, arguably the best nightlife in the world now. But this was Berlin for 30 years when it was literally a city divided by a wall. Bogota, Colombia. Bogota has no resources to put into economic development projects, but a former mayor there, his metric for success for the city was happiness. He said, our citizens are never going to be as rich as Americans, but they can be as happy, if not happier than Americans. And so he started closing streets on Sundays and opening them up for people to walk and to bicycle and to meet their neighbors. And that's something now that from New York to Sacramento, we copy this model because Bogota, Colombia taught us it was possible. This is also Bogota. Bogota is a city, as I said, no resources. Public safety is a big concern, but they have found a way to overcome this and to become something that's now a model for the rest of the world. And New Orleans, as we all know, Bourbon Street, Mardi Gras, arguably the most vibrant, part of the southern part of the United States. But in 2008, this was New Orleans. New Orleans, the only city that has more levees than Sacramento, so very susceptible to flooding. And this was a city that literally lost hundreds of thousands of people in the matter of a few weeks. New Orleans has come back from it. So vibrancy is a function of adaptability. Spoiler alert, things are never going to be great. Things are always going to be hard. We've gone through a really hard 4 or 5 year period here in Sacramento, and especially in downtown Sacramento. But we are adapting, we are becoming more resilient because of it. So with that, I just want to close that, much like places, I think that people that present as vibrant, I'm here today trying to present to you as vibrant, but it is only because I'm adaptable. I am someone who attended college. I was lucky to do that, but I never earned a college degree. I'm someone who 10 years ago when I started with this organization, I wasn't qualified to work just about any job with the Downtown Partnership. So I started as a community service guy, making $10.50 an hour, because I cared about what we were doing, and I believed that I could learn, I could contribute to the city, and I could grow within the organization. And that stuff is rocket fuel. That's the stuff that everybody tells you you're not qualified. Everybody tells you that you can't bring in a Ferris wheel or build a park over a freeway, but that's the good stuff. So I encourage all of us to think about that as it relates to our own lives and our own creative pursuits. The impossible stuff is the interesting stuff. Move into the space. Don't just try to return to what things look like in 2019. Go into that new growth space. And so with that, I want to thank you very much for being here today, and thanks for having me. And I'll be around for, I guess we got, Molly, do we have time for any questions?
Yes.
All right.
A few Q&A. Great
Questions? Yes.
Hi, okay, so thank you, that was really interesting. My question is, starting from the beginning of your presentation to see what Sacramento used to be and how vibrant it was, I'm curious about the vibrancy that we already have now. How do we ensure that we keep that as we continue to grow and we don't turn into other cities that kind of lose their soul? I kind of feel like that happened with San Francisco. It's changed to what it used to be and what it is now. So with these like new developments and these really crazy parks and these arenas and things, how do we ensure that community people aren't getting pushed out, neighborhoods aren't getting destroyed like they were previously, and how do we we as community members get involved?
Great question. Probably, I could go into this for a long time because it is a really important concern with anything we do. The mission of our organization is to build value downtown, but I think of it bigger than that. I think that we are stewards of downtown. We serve the community through that, and a big part of serving the community is that ensuring that that any part of the city, and particularly the downtown, does not become an island of privilege, does not become exclusionary. Jane Jacobs, who was the somewhat modern godmother of placemaking, in New York City in the 1940s, 1950s, she fought against freeways coming in and destroying Manhattan like she was seeing around the rest of the country. But she said that a city can only offer something for everyone if it is created by everyone. Everyone has to make their mark on it. And truly, I think that's the reflection of a vibrant place, is that if you create conditions where that the people who live in that community, not just downtown, but in the entire community that it serves, can contribute to it, can be a part of it. So, we talk about placemaking, but I think that more importantly, you got to think about place keeping. You've got to make sure that, the creatives, the artists, the people that are conveying the personality of that place in really unique ways. And typically those are artists and creatives that do that. You've got to make sure that you are safeguarding opportunities for people to live in those areas, to maintain businesses in those areas. One of the things, when we moved back to Sacramento, just before I started with the partnership, I moved up from Los Angeles, and I thought that I was incredibly lucky because I found a one-bedroom apartment in Midtown. It was $1,100 a month, and it was amazing because I could walk to work. I was able to retrofit my life so that it was more sustainable than it had been in Los Angeles. But then I saw rents start to go up all over the city, and I was fortunate that we had I was in a 100-year-old building that was paid off, and so they didn't aggressively raise our rents. But when I was in a position to finally save up enough to put a down payment on a home, I wanted a small townhouse or something, relatively affordable, and that product doesn't exist in the central city anymore. So I share that because we are trying to look at every angle to produce housing at all levels of affordability. We talk a lot about affordable housing, and yes, that's very important, but we also need the missing middle housing, the 80 to 120 AMI housing that's very hard to finance and we're woefully deficient on. You need the market rate housing because that really supports the ecosystem, but you've got to get creative in creating conditions where housing and where, honestly, where building ownership opportunities can exist at all levels of affordability. And as bad as everything has happened the last 4 or 5 years, and believe me, it's super stressful. And like I said, we've got a lot of stressed out property owners and board members. One of the silver linings, if you will, is that much like a forest fire, it's burning out some of the inflated costs on some of these areas. So we're going to go through another 2 or 3 years of painful devaluation on some properties, but with that, there's going to be a lot of opportunity to bring rents down in the central city into key areas like K Street, where we can have a more sustainable and a more equitable place for artists, for creatives, for aspiring entrepreneurs to come in and to be a part of it. So last thing I'll say is that we've got a program called the Calling All Dreamers program, which we run through our foundation. And that is literally about getting aspiring entrepreneurs who want to open a brick and mortar business of any type in our 66 blocks. We want to get them business ready, but we also want to put financial dollars behind them to get them off the ground. So we're actively working to expand that program. We've moved it over the last couple of years from a winner-take-all model to anybody who's in our top 5 is eligible for financial support on that. But it's a key question. You're always trying to aspire for the big things, but that there's some real detrimental effects that come along with that. But I still say you got to fight to be aspirational. You've still got to fight, to get people excited about being a part of Sacramento, and so you've just got to find the healthy balance between all of that. But it's hard. Yes. Hello.
I'm glad you said yes, because this is fascinating. Thank you for coming and talking to us. So I want to tie in this last part is perfect, diversity with vibrancy, because a lot of the examples that you showcase for cities abroad are destination cities, right? Which we know Sacramento has never been. It's a pass-through. It used to be for San Francisco and for Tahoe. So what are we doing, and Calling All Dreamers And is the rail yard is also part of the Downtown Partnership, or?
Not yet. We are going through a renewal process, looking at the rail yards as it gets built out.
Okay, because that was the second part. There was a talk some time ago of creating a plaza within the rail yards that would mimic those that are in Mexico City or in Buenos Aires. So what is happening with that?
Great questions. I'll start with the second part first. So the Downtown Partnership is actively writing a grant with the rail yards and with the River District, which is our sister PBID to the north along the Richards Boulevard corridor. We're going after $19 million in federal EPA grants to create that plaza in the rail yards. And that's exactly the model for it. So we've got it almost finalized. I believe we're submitting that grant next week. But that will hopefully jumpstart, create a plaza that has diversity and mobility and a true focus on equity as sort of a foundational element of that. And with the Calling All Dreamers program, there's definitely an emphasis on creating pathways for a broad diversity of people that we know is really the genetic, the DNA of Sacramento. And Sacramento, I think, is maybe now the second or third most diverse city in the United States, but it is important that we continue to reflect that and that we learn from past mistakes. I mean, what was done in the 1950s and 60s when Japantown, when the West End, when Chinatown were all wiped out of the central city. I mean, those were horrible practices. Those were really detrimental, and we've got to, we don't have a time machine to go back and course correct on that, but we can learn from those mistakes and make sure that we are creating an environment where everybody is welcomed, because that's truly part of what makes a city vibrant. With cities like New Orleans, or my wife's from Austin, Texas, and she talks about the Austin now is not the Austin that she grew up in. So she said, be careful what you wish for when you're pushing on these things. So those are important lessons that we need to learn. Life is too short to make all the mistakes yourself that you need to make to become, wise. So I think it's important to be very cognizant of what has happened here in the past that we don't want to replicate. And I think what other similar sized cities to Sacramento, like New Orleans, like what's happening in Nashville right now, and like Austin, we have to learn from those. And yes, there's inspiration there to draw from in a positive way, but there's also some cautionary tales not to replicate here. Yes, Tammy.
My question is, going back to what Rachel said, is if we are concerned, if we want to get involved and talk to policymakers, do we talk to our city council members, or do we talk to our county supervisors, or do we talk to our state reps? Do we talk to our federal reps? Like, how do we directly say, these are the things that we want in Sacramento? Can you please, because we have that uniqueness of having all of the city, state, all of it in one place. But in previous projects, I've seen a lot of, oh, that's a county issue. Okay, well, help me build the bridge between who I'm talking to and the county. Instead of finger pointing, but how can we work with the appropriate people to make the things happen?
You just described my day-to-day reality as that's a county thing. That's you should talk to the state. It's a pass the buck mentality, or a not my problem mentality. Well, the success of the city is, I always say, listen, this isn't. The big issues are all of our issues. We need ownership from everyone. The first part of your question, I would say all of the above. I mean, yes, city council, hyper-local government is super important. We've got an advocacy team, that right now is pretty much just me, but we are always encouraging. I mean, you'll see us most weeks at city council commenting on, various issues related to the budget or policy. We really try to encourage the community members, especially residents, as we're trying to repopulate the center city. Oftentimes I think that the perception is that downtown's still just the office district, or it's just the arena district. But we've got to make the voices of the residents here heard as loud as we can, because those are voters that speaks volumes to politicians, especially. But we also have to lead by example of what we want to be. We know that it's possible to have a vibrant central city neighborhood, here locally, and we see it in other cities as well. If that's what we want to be, we need to create a neighborhood of choice for future residents, and we need to make sure our politicians are thinking that way, and every decision, reflects that. I mean, because we have to lead that. So, I mean, I think everything that, whatever progress we're making right now in trying to transition downtown Sacramento is only because we are engaging, politicians at every single level of government. I had a call this week with the governor's office. We're working very closely with Congresswoman Matsui at the federal level to secure infrastructure grants, things like that. We're getting the county and the city to cooperate even more cohesively than in the time I've been here. And that's a big win. I mean, really, the success is only going to come if everybody is taking some level of ownership over these problems, because these really are regional issues. And so, yes, some of these things are downtown. That's where the geography is, but downtown is a neighborhood that belongs to everybody in a 2.6 million person region. And it's also what people identify Sacramento most often as if they're in from out of town. So
We're out of time. Oh,
Marley.
Also, one of our ins and outs this year is getting involved locally, politically, and the best way you can do that, if you want to stay involved and informed, follow us on Twitter. We do a policy roundup every week. That's at Downtown Sac, and then on LinkedIn, we do a lot of advocacy and informal posting there. So if you want to check us out on LinkedIn, that's Downtown Sacramento Partnership. What is it on Twitter again? Downtown Sac.
See, Marley's much younger and she knows this stuff much better than I do. So yeah, no, but we ask people to get involved, and obviously we've got our social handles that you can follow us on, but we really want everybody to be a part of the conversation because we're creating a neighborhood that belongs to everybody.
that's all. That's it. That's all we got.
Thanks, Molly. Thanks everyone for being here today.
All right, y'all. Hope you learned something. Had a beautiful morning. And Scott, take it from someone who lived in Austin for 10 years. If you have budget or time or anything, I would love to propose playgrounds at breweries. Not for me, but for the children.
Let's do it.
Anyway, y'all, we got to be out of here in 15 minutes. So thank you for coming.